Sisters and brothers, what a joy it is to be here, both face-to-face and live for those who are joining us virtually. This is historic for the Jamaica Council of Churches, which is drawing to a close this 3-year project, which started back in 2019, led by people like Pat Donald, who will be honoring later. This project began after many years of deliberation and consultations, and you will hear more about the success that we have been able to achieve over the 3-year period. Let me apologize for the late start. Usually in these things they say you have up to half an hour to be late, but for various reasons we have gone beyond that, so my apology both to those of you who are here face-to-face and those of you joining us in the virtual space. Nonetheless, we look forward to having a very meaningful and useful time together, and we plan to stay within the limited time frame we have given ourselves for this function. Otherwise, if we don't finish within the time, then we'll be evicted by the authorities. So we have to stay within the time. So welcome to those face-to-face, welcome to those online. We are grateful to our sponsors, with support from the Global Fund for this project, with support from the Ministry of Health, sterling support from the National Family Planning Board, and we'll be hearing from them later. We're grateful for the work of our project director, Sister Juliet, and for ably supported by Melissa, Ms. Tingling, and others. I'd also like to salute the site facilitators, one of whom is here, Reverend Williams, two. Mr. Smith, yes, is here. So welcome, and I know I saw a note from France, who is the other site facilitator. They have worked in a sterling way to make this project the success that it has been and continues to be, and we thank God for bringing us to the end of this 3-year cycle. So without further ado, let me invite us to pray, and then I will introduce the new JCC president. Let us pray. Liberating God, we thank you for the freedom you have given to us in calling Israel to be your people, your word spoken through the prophets, and above all in the word made flesh, Jesus your Son, and the gift of the Holy Spirit, who brought the church into being and continues to empower it for ministry and mission in the world. We thank you for the work of the Jamaica Council of Churches, for its witness almost 100 years. We pray that you will strengthen its witness in this country, that we will continue to be a beacon of light for your people as we march towards Jamaica, a place to live, work, raise family, and do business. Bless us in our gathering, inspire our work and our fellowship, our discussions together. We thank you for those who will be honored. We thank you for their contribution, not just to the Jamaica Council of Churches, but to our national life. Thank you for your presence and your guidance, and be with us, both those present face-to-face and those joining in the virtual space, as we celebrate the work of the Jamaica Council of Churches and look forward to 2022 for even greater things. Thanks again, and we pray your blessing upon our function in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Let me now introduce, to bring special greetings, the new president of the Jamaica Council of Churches. He began his work last month in the new role, and so he has hit the ground running, as they would say. Archbishop Kenneth Richards needs no introduction to most of us. He's the Roman Catholic Archbishop of Kingston, And he has been in that role now for some time. And of course, in that role, he sits on the executive of the Jamaica Council of Churches, where I too sit as an officer of the council for the county of Surrey. The Archbishop brings years of experience in ecumenical work, both in and outside of Jamaica. And so in one sense, this is not new for him, but certainly in terms of his role as president, he's new, and so we'd like to congratulate him for accepting and having been appointed in this role. And I invite you now to put your hands together. So we welcome him for his greeting. Put your hands together for the bishop.
Thank you, Canon Garth Minor, and welcome to colleagues and partners in the initiative that has been going on since 2019. The partnerships are important. As we say in Jamaica, one hand cannot clap. And so I take this opportunity to extend appreciation and commendations to the Global Fund, who has been funding the project of sensitization for these past 3 years, but also to acknowledge the partnership and the support that we have received from the Ministry of Health and Wellness and from the National Family Planning Board. As we look forward to continuing this partnership and to the work of sensitization, one of the underpinnings that must be our motivation, and indeed for the Jamaica Council of Churches, is that of the dignity of the person. Each of us are created in the image and likeness of God, and so we must allow that to remove any kind of racism, partisanship, exclusion of persons for one reason or another, as we seek to attend to the challenges that persons may encounter, and in this case, those who are challenged with the disease of HIV/AIDS. Promoting the dignity of the person must always be at the forefront of activities like this, and so that we see persons, and therefore when one of us, one of our brothers or sisters are in need, that we see persons and we do not ascribe to them whatever situations may have led to the consequences of the challenge that they are experiencing in their life. Another point I'd like to make this morning is that as we continue the sensitization program, that, and this is a little bee in my bud, that we do not allow political correctness not to charge us to get to the root of dealing with some problems, because sometimes because of saying things in a correct way, then we can attend to and address symptoms rather than get to the root of the problems. And I invite us as we go forward in the coming years with this partnership, that indeed we evaluate how we can get around that and how we can get to the root problem, so that we do not allow a constant flow feeding into the challenge as it multiplies each year, but rather we can move to the point of eliminating. And of course, that is in a broad-based way, both to the disease, but also with respect to the stigma, how we relate to people, and the assistance that we will give to them. So thanks, Canon Garth, for introducing me this morning, and thanks again for all the partners. We look forward to the continued work, and indeed that we'll truly allow the dignity of the person, our love and respect for each other, to be our motivation in this program of sensitization and promoting due respect for each person, and to give them the necessary assistance for their well-being, and indeed not only their well-being but also the well-being of society as we move forward together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Archbishop. Well said. Affirming the dignity of the person by rejecting exclusion, racism, sexism, etc., while at the same time affirming love and respect for each other, rejecting political correctness while working towards getting to the root of the problem of stigma and discrimination, in moving to eliminate HIV, stigma, discrimination, etc. We do know that there are things that can be done, to reduce, if not eliminate, HIV infection. One of them is gender-based violence. And so the Archbishop is calling us, for example, not to engage in political correctness, but to get to the root of domestic gender-based violence in order to, because if we address that, then of course, yes, we address the matter of HIV, at least from one perspective. The Archbishop also spoke about assistance, giving assistance, and through support from the AIDS Healthcare Foundation, the Archbishop spoke about partnerships. We have been able to provide care packages to over 30 persons living with HIV. This year is the second year that we have been doing it, and we'll continue to do that with support. So thank you, Archbishop, for emphasizing this support, the assistance that we need to give to our sisters and brothers, while at the same time seeing them as equal partners. We are to see them as persons, not simply as victims along the way. So thanks again so much for those very timely and relevant reminders. Now I'm going to hand over the next section of the program to my colleague, Devon Gabriel. He will introduce himself when he comes, but again, like the Archbishop, he's no stranger to us. Not that he's an Archbishop, but over to you, Devon.
You don't know how that felt to be put in the same sentence as the Archbishop. Gravitas. Good morning, everyone. My name is Devon Gabriel. I'm the Director of Enabling Environment and Human Rights with the National Family Planning Board, an agency of the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Archbishop, I liked your greeting, because you know you've challenged me now to put it all in context. I like that. As you said, it's not about political correctness, but it's about the reality, the lived realities. So let me start off by saying, today we are commemorating World AIDS Day. The first World AIDS Day celebration, I believe, was in 1988. Threefold. To remember those who have passed. At that time, many people were dying because we did not have the kind of medication freedoms that we have now. So the first one is to commemorate. The second one was to advocate and to remind persons that there was a purpose for us to have the kind of advocacy, the kind of alliances that we needed. And the third one was in some ways to recognize the work of all the partners in the HIV response, and then how do we galvanize ourselves to move forward to remain strong. 1988 is now 2000, Lord. See, I lost track of time, 2021. This year's theme is so fitting, therefore, because we started World AIDS Day 1988 as a global day because there was so much fear. Persons thought that if you contracted HIV, you were dead the next day. Persons thought that if you found out that Archbishop had HIV, you couldn't even eat a slice of watermelon from him. And they still do, Archbishop. 2012 was the last knowledge, attitudes, perceptions, and behaviors study that was commissioned by my agency, the National Family Planning Board. Only 10% of the young people who were interviewed, only 10% said that they would eat food from someone they thought they knew or perceived to be HIV positive. 10%. Only less than 10% of those young persons said that they would support a teacher teaching them in the classroom if they knew that person to be HIV positive. Those are what our young people are saying. So therefore, it is very relevant that today's theme end inequalities, end AIDS, end pandemics is today. Because guess what? COVID-19 reminds us that pandemics don't necessarily have to be affecting so-called bad minorities, but pandemics affect all of us. But we're always looking for a scapegoat, aren't we? And this pandemic in COVID has reminded us, like HIV, if we're not careful and we keep looking for scapegoats, we will ignore the science and we will forget the humanity, and the result will be further death and destruction for our society. So I'm so glad that we are partnering with the Jamaica Council of Churches. I know Reverend Minot has been so humble, he doesn't talk about himself. But I'm up here to say, I am so glad, Reverend Minot, you have been a constant, and so we are so very grateful for the kind of work, commitment, and I must say, the kind of advocacy that you've done, not only for the religious community, but especially for the Jamaica Council of Churches. They should be very, very thankful. Thank you so much. Because Reverend is not going to tell you we have another 3 years coming up. Again, thanks to his great advocacy. Good work, Rev. So I am told through my RH, the religious site facilitators, that there are some people that we really need to thank, because I just took the time to thank Reverend Gart. But there are others. Reverend Dwayne Williams from Clarendon and Manchester. He tells me that there are a couple of people that we really need to give a thank you to for the people in his region. We have, for instance, Reverend Hilda Vaughn. Hilda has such an effervescent smile. Oh my goodness. Miss Hilda, let me do it again. You're special. So Reverend Hilda, there you are. So a priest with responsibilities for Gilnock, Santa Cruz. Through pastoral care, Reverend Vaughn continues to build a community of justice, kindness, peace, and joy, and the picture doesn't lie. She has had a keen interest in the empowerment of all, particularly towards the upliftment of both women and girls. As an avid supporter of the Jamaica Council of Churches, JCC's initiative, many of our gains would not have been achieved. And this is quoting Dwayne over there. So on this World AIDS Day, Reverend Vaughn, we salute you. And then we have Sasha, Reverend Sasha Lambert. Reverend Sasha, good morning, good afternoon, is the minister of Zorn and Bohemia Moravian Churches. Reverend Lambert is also the chairperson of the Eastern District Conference of the Moravian Church in Jamaica and the Cayman Islands, and Christiana Ministers Fraternal. Reverend Lambert continually encourages congregants to participate in the JCC's workshops. The content of the sessions are shared in worship sessions, services, Bible study sessions, and at community interventions. Her commitment to the promulgating of the message to reduce stigma and discrimination among all its settings has been featured in all aspects of her ministry. Reverend Lambert, on this World AIDS Day, we salute you. Reverend Milton Bailey. Reverend Milton Bailey, baptized as a teenager and a soldier of the Lord from those early years, have been involved in various ministry initiatives, both in his local church and at the parish level. Now the pastor with responsibility for Paradise Baptist Church, championing the mandate of Christians becoming part of the message to end social injustice, which is also the mission of Christ. As a zealous supporter of the aims of the project, Reverend Bailey has sought to spread the message of non-discrimination towards people living with HIV and marginalized groups, and to promote the benefits of nonviolence in all its settings. Reverend Bailey, on this World AIDS Day, we salute you. Our regional site facilitator for Trelawney and St. James is Reverend France Camille, and he has recommended some persons for a special commendation. Miss Melissa Brown. That's her? Miss Melissa Brown works in education and as a youth leader in the Warsop Circuit of Baptist churches. She has the ability to rally young people from both the church and the community and has been promulgating the message of empowerment through education. She has been championing the benefits of nonviolence, particularly nonviolence in the home and community settings. She has been a source of empowerment and a point of referral for those who have privately sought her assistance. Miss Melissa Brown, on this World AIDS Day 2021, we salute you. Reverend Adrian Dunn, a Baptist minister serving the Spring Garden Circuit. Reverend Dunn is currently studying the factors that cause youth migration from the rural communities and churches, and as church, how this could be stemmed. Fascinating. Reverend Dunn is passionate about developing a wholesome ministry for young people, men and women in Trelawney. He encourages and invites his congregations to be involved in all of the Jamaica Council of Churches project initiatives. So, Reverend Dunn, on this World AIDS Day, we salute you. And for the young people, big up on yourself. Mr. Barrington Thompson, a teacher and a deacon in the Baptist Church in Trelawney. Mr. Thompson, there he is passionate about advocacy and equality for the less fortunate. He works with young people and men in both churches and communities across several parishes in Jamaica. A true role model, especially to male teenagers, a group that so desperately need to use male leadership and accountability in action. A real big man. Mr. Thompson, on this World AIDS Day, we salute you. And our religious site facilitator who was assigned to Kingston and St. Andrew, I believe this was their first year, was it, Mr. Smith? Was Carl Smith. And he has mentioned a few persons for commendation for the stellar work that they've done in his region to support him. And we have Mrs. Heather Smith. Hello, Ms. Smith. Mrs. Heather Smith, a member of the Pretoria Road United Church. She has provided support to the religious site facilitator by not only giving her time in support of her cause, but in going the extra mile to ensure the success of many of the initiatives. A strong woman, a strong supporter, a strong ally. We do appreciate her sacrifices. In fact, we're going to go further and say, Ms. Smith, we appreciate you. Thank you so much. On this World AIDS Day, we salute you. Rev, I think my Jamaican is coming up, getting better. It's coming along, right? Reverend Delroy Harris. So Reverend Delroy Harris, Reverend Harris, the Associate Minister at the Webster Memorial United Church. Reverend Harris, for approximately 2 decades, has been supportive of the various Ministry of Health and Wellness projects related to ending stigma and discrimination of persons living with HIV and marginalized groups. Reverend Harris, on this World AIDS Day, we extend our appreciation for your continued support and all of your collective initiatives. And where is he? Mr. Harris, I could blame the Klieg lights, right? But thank you so much. 20 years, 2 decades. Big up yourself. I would say walk good, but you're walking good all the time. So on this Warley's Day, thank you, sir. We salute you. And of course, we would be amiss. We mentioned the religious site facilitators, but generally there are other persons who are positively impacted the overall project over the past 3 years. Well, I am a little biased on this one, Miss Judith Fishley. Miss Fishley is, there she is. No worries, she smiles. She smiles. Miss Fishley, the wheels that keep the bus moving, literally, is not one for being in the spotlight. She much prefers working behind the scenes. That's so true. She's a critical link between the project, my team at the Enabling Environment Human Rights Unit, and my colleagues over at the Ministry of Health and Wellness. Ms. Fishley is a stickler. She really follows the books. She is one that keeps everyone on their toes. We do not know where we would be, and this is Juliet saying it, and I know she means it. We do not know where we would be without her guidance. I think we need to give her that and put that on a mug, right? Ms. Fishley, we appreciate your attention to detail and the help given in having all our I's dotted, the T's crossed, and the paper crisp. You are invaluable to us, and so on this World AIDS Day. On behalf of the full team at JCC and the project team, especially Julia Hall, we salute you. The Rev mentioned earlier Mrs. Patricia Donald Phillips. Miss Pat, my very good friend from long time. Mrs. Patricia Donald Phillips was instrumental in getting the project off and running. As part of the initial startup, she has served the project in many capacities: project officer, administrative officer, social media officer. Always just a call away. She continues to support the project and by extension the Jamaica Council of Churches through her sterling advice and institutional knowledge. Mrs. Phillips, on this World AIDS Day, we salute you from the very, very bottom of our hearts, honestly. And my good friend, Mrs. Rosemary Stone. Miss Rosie, Mrs. Rosemary Stone, author, advocate for the persons of the HIV community, has been resolute in her pursuit of sharing the lived experiences of people living with HIV. She has been ready to offer, you see why you shouldn't use a teleprompter? There it goes. She has been willing to offer and provide her guidance, her inspiration. She's willing to talk on the reduction of stigma and discrimination and has provided solid suggestions on possible avenues of service which faith-based organizations can lend support to. For this, Rosie, words cannot express that on this World AIDS Day, we salute you. And finally, but certainly not representative of all the persons who have supported, we must call out Father Sean Major Campbell. Father Sean Major Campbell, a faith leader that is unafraid to tackle the difficult or sensitive subjects, and he is not, that many faith leaders are afraid to address. Unwaveringly, he stands as a voice in the country, in the region and throughout the world, echoing the charge of treating all humankind with respect and dignity. We applaud you today, Sean, sir, Father, for your unflinching advocacy and activism in the interests of vulnerable and marginalized groups in our country. Father Sean, on this World AIDS Day, we salute you. These persons have been stalwart supporters of this project. The team certainly wanted to take the time to appreciate them. So on this World AIDS Day, we thought it was appropriate that we share or grateful thanks to these persons. I think we have a video that is going to be streaming now. Okay, no problem. Do I move on to... Could we just thank those persons, please? So, Archbishop, I said that we're going to talk from reality. So I want everyone in the room and all the persons who are hearing me, my presentation that I'm about to give is on social protection. This year's theme, End Inequalities, End AIDS, End Pandemics, begs us to interpret that statement as what the truth about HIV is. That HIV and AIDS is not only a medical condition that requires and demands medical interventions, but that HIV is driven, is enabled, is perhaps even, the word that is used a lot here, is even promulgated in many respects by the other oh Lord, I'm using all of my lawyer terms, by the surrounding or the affecting issues and values such as poverty, gender, social norms, your education, your work environment, the community of persons, the communion of people that you are engaged in. So it was very important that I bring that into context. And then I'm going to then give you a scenario. There is this young lady who I know very well. I knew that she was positive when I met her and before we got married, right? And so when she shared her history, and she still shares her history with me today when we talk on the phone or when head hit pillow, I know that HIV, when she was diagnosed with HIV at the age of 16 years old, and where she is living with HIV at the age of, Lord, I won't say how old she is now. Yes, she's living with HIV. But there were 3 or 4 or 5 different versions of the same person along this journey. It is therefore important, the first thing we must know, that people living with HIV are not a monolith. We're not static. They're dynamic. And therefore, when we speak of addressing inequalities, of ending AIDS, and you're talking about persons living with HIV, you must remember that that person that started off maybe being frightened and afraid and needed counseling and needed that hand to hold, will also need the other support that will bring them along the journey to a very strong, empowered, powerful, forceful force of action living with HIV. And the role of our faith communities cannot be lost from the beginning along that journey until the very end. That's what I wanted to start off with. Great. So my presentation, I'm going to go very quickly, is End Inequalities, End AIDS, End Pandemics. Can you proceed? So as I mentioned before, World AIDS Day is celebrated every year today. It is to unite people in the fight against HIV, show support for people living with HIV, and also to remember persons who have died. Our theme is inequality because poverty fuels susceptibility to HIV and a sense of barriers. So the poverty, the sense of disillusion, of being isolated, destitute, can spread HIV. Go ahead. So the statistics for persons who are not familiar, we have an estimated 32,000 persons in Jamaica living with HIV. This is the most, you notice, 2021, the most up-to-date data. We have an estimated 32,000 persons in Jamaica living with HIV. Of that estimated number, about 86% know their status. Okay? It's important that we note that even though the general prevalence of HIV in Jamaica has fallen below 2%, that is 2 for every 100,000 persons, to 1.4, there are some particular populations. There are some particular human beings who, who we must not forget about. Or population of transgender women, 51% of HIV prevalence rate. Or men who have sex with men, we still have almost 30%. Or homeless population, 13.9%. Or prison inmates, almost 7%. And our female sex worker, which used to be high over the tens, has now dropped. So we wanted to point out the last one, the female sex workers, because when people think of female, you think prostitution, you think about all of the isms, schisms that come with that kind of behavior. But I wanted to stress that despite what our social norms around sex work has been, with proper education of the sex workers and their clients, we're providing the kind of resources, the medication, the treatment, and the kind of link to care that is needed. The prevalence rate among female sex workers has dropped from a high tens to 2%. So it is critical that we do not forget the science as we address this HIV in our communities. Go ahead. So that is a representation of our treatment cascade. If I may, can I move from this? Because I don't have my pointer with me. Our treatment cascade shows, so it is supposed to go from the full population of persons living with HIV, but it's the very last cascade that we are critically important. We are really important. We really, as a response, want to pay attention to. Because what we'd want to do is for this cascade to be flat. Unfortunately, as you can see, as much as we know the amount of persons living with HIV, the last column, that is the amount of persons living with HIV who are linked to care, who have achieved viral suppression, is still kind of low. Why is that important for us to know? Because with viral suppression, remember I mentioned my wife and myself? With viral suppression, either one of us could take a test and it is undetectable. With viral suppression, the virus is so low in your body, the amount of viral cells are so low that the normal machine will not pick it up. That's what I'm using my street language. But most importantly, what it means is that the opportunities to transmit the virus to someone else is gone, disappears, especially through sex. That's one, which is the main source of transmission in Jamaica. Two, the opportunities to get opportunistic infections, which is really what AIDS is about. That is getting sick when your body immune system defenses have broken down, are virtually gone as well. So it's important, regardless of how you feel about any one of the populations listed, or how you feel about how persons contracted HIV, that we promote an environment where persons get on treatment as fast as possible, because once you can stop HIV from spreading and transmitting in that person's body, you can effectively help to stop and stem the spread of HIV in the country. Okay? Next. So therefore, this year, especially now, just in case persons were not hearing the science of HIV, we thought that perhaps it is also important that you recognize that the ability of many of the populations that I just listed, the men who have sex with men, female sex workers, or vulnerable children and girls and orphans, the ability of these populations, persons to enjoy adequate living is already hard. People don't judge and people already cast aspersions on them. However, this affects our standard and sustainable livelihood is impacted by low education attainment, low income earning, inability to access basic social services, lack of economic opportunities. So that immediately we know that that is vulnerability and risk. This reality increases the likelihood of sexual risk, including transactional sex, which increases vulnerability to HIV. Next slide, please. So, I've said that. Again, it comes down to COVID. COVID has really revealed the kind of disconnect that we have as a community, where we have rural communities without access to communications. Persons are unable to move and get services. So COVID has especially shown us why it's important as religious communities that we have an enabling space and environment. Go ahead. Our national response, however, is working. As you know, we've done the mass media campaigns. We're working with various agencies to see where we can end stigma and discrimination in all settings of school, in the workplace, in the communities, in justice. Go ahead. However, we recognized as an agency that we also needed to improve our social protection mechanism in the country. So social protection describes that suite or a set of products or interventions that our state, that Jamaica provides, initiatives or action designed to reduce the risk and vulnerability to loss of income. So we did a report, we did a study with the UNAIDS and the PIOJ and various partners. The report was an assessment of the existing social protection programs provided by the government of Jamaica, and we wanted to identify the gaps in the coverage of social protection that needs to be addressed. So what we found does that, for those of you who don't know, Jamaica has a robust social protection mechanism in this country. We have services available for our community to access health care. We provide social assistance. We provide social insurance. And we also have a ton, and I literally mean this, of labor market interventions. Okay? So the access to health care, so as it relates to HIV, the state through its HIV STI program provides free HIV care, free HIV treatment, as well as referral to a full slate of services that range from a nutritionist to pharmacists to adherence counselors. There are so many of full support. And you also have the social assistance program. You have refers to non-contributory interventions. We have cash and food transfers through some of the ministries such as the local government, rural development, through Ministry of Labor and Social Security. These programs are mainly tax financed and they're redistributive of cash and food. We also have social insurance schemes. They're event condition and contribution-based programs, and these are also provided. And we have the labor market interventions. We have about 7 of them in Jamaica. There are more, there are several of them, such as skills training, apprenticeship, entrepreneurship that are available. Next slide, please. So what did we find when we looked at all of these services and the social protection mechanisms in Jamaica? that one or most, as it relates for you, because you're going to be meeting persons in your congregations who need assistance, the young mother living with HIV needs your help. The young mother living with HIV should not be ignored. Our studies showed and identified as the vulnerable population group facing the most barriers accessing HIV care. The young mother living with HIV. The long waiting queue, go back please. I like to pause for dramatic effects, you see. For those persons who used to teach speech writing, I used to teach speech. So I used to tell my class, you have to pause, you raise your voice, you drop your voice. Yeah, so it's done. The long waiting queues, or long line, to access services was also identified as a major barrier and had a frequency that was higher than HIV-related barriers. In other words, from a government perspective, we recognize that has to be fixed. But we also, if Father Minor, to remember that you have done mapping of your services. We have worked with the Jamaica Council of Churches to develop a directory of services. And if you can provide services that can serve the population, that will help us to mitigate those long queues, that is an opportunity for our church community. Okay? There's counseling, you have your nutritional programs. If you can help us to mitigate and alleviate that, that'll be good. The poor, people living with HIV, and poor workers in an informal sector are also very vulnerable. Okay? The barriers faced by our poor people were especially highlighted in relation to accessing health care. We are heartened that our church communities, if you're offering medical programs, if you can, so think about that. How can you improve services for our poor congregants? The poor person living with HIV and poor workers in informal sector, in relation to accessing health care, while those of PHIV and informal workers were highlighted in relation to accessing social assistance and social insurance respectively. So what does that mean for you? You are the ideal population that assists persons in terms of referrals, in terms of providing guidance, providing counseling, providing the kind of support that person will need to make the kind of applications for social assistance, for social insurance. If you have not thought about it, perhaps it's a way to open a new avenue or a new system at your church that provides this kind of help for persons who want to access services. And finally, self-stigma. Some people say, I love talk my business, the mere fact that I mention my wife and myself. But I will tell you, the reason why I mentioned the journey from the beginning to the end, because I found out I was HIV positive when I was in my final year at Norman, it wasn't Norman Manley, it was the Mona School of Law. I was part of the first group of law students in Jamaica, the very first. So I was feeling very special. And one day, you're not hearing this, Archbishop, I wanted to have sex with somebody new, right? And the person said, you cannot have any relationship with me till you know your status. So I went to my good friend and I said, I'm ready. It's that time again. I did it every year. And I sat there, and usually it would take a few minutes. But she was fidgeting and she was fumbling. And I love good jokes. So I said, well, why are you taking so that you're acting as if something is wrong, like it's positive? And I said it as a joke. And she said, you know what? It looks like that, And that is how the skies literally turned black and gray. I kid you not. When I walked outside, or maybe it was my stress, I don't know what happened. Well, all I saw was black. And so when I started, and I was in Jamaica, in my Ligani apartment, and my grades were like A plus, whatever, whatever. I'll have to say that Patrick is in background and I want to make him think that I was an excellent student. And, and I literally stayed in my room. I didn't go anywhere. I literally sat there waiting to die. It sounds stupid saying it now, but that was my reality. Because it was fear, you don't know better, you don't think there's anybody who will support you. You know, I'm supposed to be educated, I'm supposed to be upwardly mobile. This happened to me, it doesn't happen to certain people. You know the whole spiel. I mentioned that because I literally sat there, I lost all this weight, like already skinny, imagine me skinnier, and my grades fell, like plummeted from a 4 point something. I didn't even know I could have made a 0 point something GPA. I didn't know that was possible until I saw it. Okay? Self-stigma is debilitating. What saved me was being able to literally, somebody came, a friend of mine who was involved in an organization for positive persons, and it could be a friend of yours who could be, you could open your own support group system. That's what I'm trying to say. And a person took my hand and introduced me to other persons. And it wasn't some kind of social club but it was just bacchanal. It wasn't like that. It was finding yourself, finding who I am, realizing that there was life ahead, that I could meet strong persons in my environment. I also met my wife, and I also knew now I have my kids. So self-stigma can be debilitating, and it also, I literally was shooting myself in the foot and everywhere else instead of seeking help. That is a major problem for your congregations, because Miss Annie, who comes to church every, be it Saturday, Sunday, or in between, is sitting there in the pew, and she is not willing to disclose because she's afraid, one, that you're not confidential, two, that it's not private, three, you're going to judge her and say Miss Annie must have been doing all kind of fornication on the road. When poor Miss Annie must have been in her house, they wait for Mr. Andrew, who is doing the other stuff on the road. Or poor Miss Annie could be exposed in many other ways, because guess what? HIV is spread not by bad behavior, but by fluids that all of us have. And that is the point. We found in our study that self-stigma was a major barrier for persons to access care. And I mentioned my history to tell you that sometimes it'll take you to bring that person in. Next slide. So with that said, we have 6 major recommendations. The first one, raise awareness on existing programs. Not many persons know that there are over 7 Ministry of Labor and Security work programs. We found that many of the respondents didn't know about many of the programs that exist. That's one. 2, so before I go to 2, so there's an opportunity, Juliet, for next coming year, that we may have to upgrade the directory to reflect those for the church community to be aware. 2, the selection, we're going to be lobbying our government so that the selection criteria for social assistance is a little relaxed. So far it's on the income based, but program selection targets lower consumption families. But what about adolescent mothers in non-poor households? Don't adolescent mothers need support too? I just said HIV positive pregnant mothers are the most vulnerable. So they need the support. 3, this is nothing about NIDS. If you had your political view about NIDS before, COVID may have dissuaded you now. I live all the way up in Dallas, up the hill. Do you know where that is? So for me to come down here with my car not working, my friends, I had to get up at 4. What time I woke? I left out at 4:45 before curfew. And I walked down the hill of Cane River Falls. You ever gone there? And walked down to 9 Miles Bull Bay. Me, at 4:45 this morning, to be here. Eh? It takes, not every day me could do that. And not every day our people in rural communities can do that too. Digitalizing enrollment, extending digital transfer payments. It is critical. It is critical. Mobile application platforms, technology, so we're asking for you to be aware, to do the kind of advocacy that is needed around that. Fourth. Next. I can't count. Number 4, strengthen the local coordination. That's another one of the recommendations. The role of the Registrar General's Department needs to be strengthened around that coordination. The labor market programs, as I mentioned there were over 7. I think it was 11 that we counted. So to maximize the efficiencies, we are recommending consolidating the labor market programs. And finally, we want to commission a study. We're recommending that we commission a study on the informal sector, especially for persons in our rural communities, the Clarendons, the Trelawneys out there. You know that informal sector is a major sector in our country. In fact, there is one of our telecommunication company that even says, what is the word they use? Hustle. They're recognizing that hustle is a major thing. And so it's important, therefore, that as a church community as well, we recognize the role of our informal sector. We find ways to improve the services we provide for our congregants that are part of that sector who may not have access to the formal healthcare systems and the social systems, and they need your support to access those. Today, we're on the ground, Maxfield Park. If there are any of your friends who are not here, you'd like to tell persons who are living in the communities to come out to Maxfield Park Health Center. Or social protection agencies will be out there, including the Office of the Public Defender, the Registrar General's Department, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, PATH, HART, the NSTA, and many other agencies. As an agency, we're also providing support to persons who need it to get their birth certificates today as well. Okay? That's it. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. But remember, for World AIDS Day, ending AIDS, ending inequalities, ending pandemics, it's important as a church community that we do not drop the ball on the kind of social support and development assistance that our congregants need.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Is it afternoon? It's still morning. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Beautiful. Our next presenter comes to us. His name is Patrick Layla. He's a policy and advocacy officer at Jamaica AIDS Support for Life. He's going to come and make the second presentation for the day, the importance of reporting. But prior to that, he'll be just telling us a little bit about the work that his association, that his organization does for us. So, Mr. Layla.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Let me recognize the Archbishop, Canon God, or former chairman. Pleased to see you here today, sir. I thought of, can I remove this? I thought of putting on a suit today because when Juliet sent me the program, I saw that the Archbishop was going to be here. But none of my suits have a message that I wanted to leave in the room. So I decided to wear one of my work shirts with a message as opposed to putting on the suit for today. So forgive me, sir. Jamaica AIDS Support for Life, I'm Sorry, sir. The cameras normally have a problem with me because I'm not a stationary speaker. So if you set it here, I may be all over the place, all right? The Jamaica AIDS Support for Life is celebrating 30 years this month. We have been in Jamaica for 30 years providing HIV prevention, treatment, and care services to Jamaicans all across the island. And I must say that we have survived so long because we have always had the support of the church. Canon Gart, who has been our chairman for many years, and other church leaders have always been with us, and I think that support. Now, the Jamaica AIDS Support for Life, our services are three-pronged. We have a whole prevention arm that deals with prevention services, ensuring that people have the correct information and commodities to prevent contracting HIV or any other STI for that matter. We have a treatment arm that focuses on those who have already contracted the virus, how we help people living with HIV to live a healthy life. So we get them on treatment. We are one of the two non-government agencies that operate full treatment sites for persons living with HIV. So we have a whole treatment arm that gets people on treatment, and the treatment services span not just medical, but psychosocial support. So we have psychologists, counselors, social workers, adherence counselors, nutritionists that help people develop meal plans to help maintain their health. And then our third arm, which is the capacity in which I'm here today, is the Enabling Environment and Human Rights arm. And that is the department of our organization that deals with the structural barriers that prevent people living with HIV from living a full life. So the stigma and discrimination that Devon spoke about, the need to see the human, recognize the human dignity that our Archbishop spoke about in his opening remarks in everyone, that is what our Enabling Environment and Human Rights work does. So it's there to ensure that any person living with HIV who experience discrimination within the workplace, in educational institutions, in the church, wherever it happens, we have an arm that responds to that bit of the work. So in a synopsis, that is what Jamaica AIDS Support for Life do. It is a pleasure to be with you here today and to talk about the issue of reporting. We're going to be talking about reporting under the theme for this year, which is what? Let me hear you say the theme. End pandemics. I said to somebody yesterday, can we ever end pandemics? Because we just got a hold of the HIV pandemic, and then there's COVID. What will there be tomorrow? What will there be next week? We never know. But the importance of reporting is what we'll be focusing on today. And the presentation is going to answer three questions. The first question looks simple, but it's important. We are talking about the importance of reporting, but what exactly is reporting? Why is it important to report? And the three questions, the what, the where, and the how. What to report, where to report, and how to report. Because there are some people who will not want to report, but there are some people who want to report but don't know where to report. And I want us to put this in the context of, we have a term, informal, in Jamaica, that has developed a negative connotation over the years. An informer is actually someone who provides information, That's an informer. But in our cultural context, it has become a term loaded with negative connotation, so nobody wants to report, lest I be classified as an informer, which is not a good thing. in the Jamaican cultural context. But before I begin, I'm going to start with a passage of scripture, which I will end with another portion of 1 Corinthians 13. It says, everybody repeat it for me, because I know you all know it very well. And now abideth I'm sure Canon, Archbishop, and many of you have preached numerous sermons on this passage at some point in time. And now abideth these three, faith, hope, love, but the greatest of these is love. And I want you to think of that word in red on the slide throughout the presentation as we look at the issue of reporting, love. Now, reporting is simply giving an account of something, whether you do so in writing or the spoken word. It may be something that you observed, something that you did, something that you saw being done, something that you heard of being done. But it is basically giving an account of what you saw, heard, observed, or did. That's basically what reporting is. But why are we talking to you today about reporting and the importance of reporting? Now, why is it important to report? There are numerous reasons. We just have a few here. Reporting gives us information. It gives information. But what happens with that information? It provides a basis for action. When was the last time you visited a sick person, Canon? Last week? Why did you visit that person? How did you know that that person was sick? You called. Oh, the person called you. Good. Reporting provides a basis for action. If Canon didn't get that call, or some other brother or sister didn't send a message to say that person is sick, you would not have visited the person, unless you maybe was doing routine visits. So it provides a basis for action. Because that information was shared with you, you were able to act and provide some support for that individual. Now, reporting facilitates decision making or planning, because we know that there is an issue that needs to be dealt with. That is why the Jamaica Council of Churches got involved in this project. And that is why you have plans for a next 3-year round of the project, because there is something that needs to be addressed. Reporting discloses unknown information. You did not know that that person was sick until that call was made. Reporting can help to stop harmful practices. Many times the authorities, we say, we had no idea that that was happening there. And now that it has come to our attention, it needs to stop. Reporting gives reliable information that can help us solve problems. But it is also our civic duty as good citizens to report when we see things happening that are not supposed to happen. So we are clear on reporting. We are clear on why it is to report. But what exactly is the focus of today, or World AIDS Day, and what to report? So yes, generally we report crimes. Any wrongdoing that we see happening in our surroundings. Incidents of abuse. And I have children there up in red, because outside of our civic duty, there is a legal duty. The Child Care and Protection Act of Jamaica places a legal obligation on every adult person to say, if you are aware of a child in need of care and protection, is what the legislation says. And that means many things. It can be a child that is being abused. It can be a child that is in an abusive environment that is exposing the child to be abused. It can be sexual violence be perpetrated against children by adults. The Child Care and Protection Act says, as an adult, Not the special groups like teachers and guidance counselors, but every person who have attained the age of 18 is recognized as an adult in Jamaica. And it says if you are aware that a child is in any form of danger, whatever the case may be, that is something to report. The other area I want us to talk about a little is the issue of gender-based violence. Canon God spoke to it earlier in his remarks. Gender-based violence, and gender-based violence takes many forms. There's family violence, there's domestic violence, there's intimate partner violence. All these are things that we see happening in our society, we see happening around us. The strong connection, research is out there that makes the strong connection between gender-based violence, in particular sexual violence, and HIV. Where even at the Jamaica AIDS Support for Life, we have a lot of people in care now who became HIV positive as a result of sexual violence. They were raped. They were in a relationship where they did not decide the terms on which they have sex. They are in an abusive relationship, so you don't dare say, I want to use a condom, I want to have protected sex. So violence is a part of the problem. And then we have HIV-related discrimination. We tend to be in a culture, and I started with the quote from Corinthians on the issue of love, because what you realize that passage says is if you do all the things that it says, give your body to be burned, bestow all your goods to the poor, move mouth, whatever you do, and have not love, it counts for nothing. Now, why should you report all of these things if you are aware of them or see them happening? And that is why I'm rooting that in love. Because if we have love for our brothers and sisters in our surroundings, those whom we come in contact with, we could not see any of these acts of violence happening to them and believe that we should say, well, it's not my business. It's not my business. When we touch the issue of gender-based violence, people tend to say, well, it's a family matter. It's man and woman story. Let them sort it out. Let me not get involved. No. That is not the way to go. Because the reality is, yes, there is the police and there are the laws to deal with these issues, but we will never. I hear calls many times to increase the police force by another 10,000, by another 20,000. But even if we increase the police force by another 100,000, we will never have a police officer at every point in Jamaica where a crime is being committed. Every time it is being committed. We will not have a police officer in every home where violence is being perpetrated against a woman, against children. We'll never have a police officer to be everywhere at every time, seeing everything. So that is where we as citizens, as good citizens, play a role in reporting these violations so that we can see the reduction in crime. Yes, the government has a responsibility, the police have a job to do, but we also have a role to play in reporting. But the question is, where do we report? I want to share with you some spaces that you may not be aware of, or you may very well be aware of, that you can report. We have and these are specific to the health and workplace sector. So you have the complaints management system. This is a system in the Ministry of Health where if anyone experiences discrimination at a government healthcare facility, so this system is very specific to government healthcare facility. So if they say it happened at a private doctor, they will tell you they cannot help at this system. It governs public healthcare facilities. So anyone, you know, saying, well, I have HIV, I went for treatment at the facility, or I had an issue and I went for treatment, and this is what happened with the nurse, the doctor, the security, the records clerk, whoever the staff may be, the complaints management system deals with any violation, any bad experience that one had at a public healthcare facility. So that is somewhere you can report. The Jamaica Anti-Discrimination System for HIV is a system managed by JN+, which is the Jamaican Network of Seropositives. And this is a civil society organization, and the system is managed by a steering committee which brings together non-government and government organizations. So I sit on that committee as the representative from Jamaica AIDS Support for Life. We have a representative from the police on the committee. We have a representative from the Ministry of Labor, from the Ministry of Health. And this committee looks at issues of HIV-related discrimination. So if in your spaces someone say they experience discrimination because of their HIV status, and you say, boy, I wish I could help you, I can pray for you. But that is all I can do. Call the Jamaica Anti-Discrimination System, and they have the resources and the personnel to help deal with that matter. And then we have the Ministry of Labor and Social Security. Devon just spoke about social protection, and he spoke about the numerous programs there that people don't know. People don't use. The Ministry of Labor has a whole conciliation process that governs workspaces. If the person living with HIV is in your membership, is in your church, and they say, but when I go to work, I constantly am experiencing this. Nobody sits beside me in the lunchroom. They put me around the back to work all by myself. Discrimination happening at work. The Ministry of Labor has a system that is prepared and equipped to deal with that. So that is the place where you can report such violations. Now, as an NGO, Jamaica AIDS Support for Life, having been around for 30 years is some time. So we have stretched our arms in all of these entities. So if you ever forget any one of these, Jamaica AIDS Support for Life is a one-stop shop where if you bring the issue to us, we can divert it to any one of the relevant systems that it should go to. Now, I want us to also look at some national mechanisms that protect human rights violations. So we have disputes between citizens and the police, disputes between citizens and the state. Disputes between citizens can be reported to the police. But what about a dispute between a citizen and the state? What if they said this is what the government is, or the government agency is doing? Then that is why we have all these commissions of parliament set up. You have the Office of the Public Defender, you have the Office of the Children's Advocate, you have INDICOM. These are places that you can report, but they all serve a different purpose. Now the Office of the Public Defender is there to deal with, next slide, any issue you have with a state agency, a government agency. That's what the OPD does. So it's a commission of parliament that investigates complaints made by citizens against the state. So it cannot be a private sector matter. Matter with the citizen and the state. So that's what the public defender does. Then we have the Office of the Children's Advocate, and the OCA is a commission set up to deals with children's rights and issues related to children. You may be familiar with what was the CDA, which is now the CPFSA, the Child Protection and Family Services Agency. But while the CPFSA will deal with the social part of putting the children in state care, homes and so forth, the OCA deals with the legal issues that may come up with a child's right being violated. So that is some other place you can make a report. And then the Independent Commission of Investigation, which is another body to which reports can be made, deals with violations committed by the uniformed forces. I'm being very specific in saying that because people limit INDICOM to the police. But if For example, Devon shared statistics about HIV prevalence among prison inmates. The church is one organization that does a lot of work in terms of providing support and guidance to persons who are incarcerated. If in your providing that service you come across the fact an inmate saying that they are facing any violation by a correctional officer, that also falls within the mandate of the Independent Commission of Investigation. So these are just a few single entities, commissions of parliament, national entities to which you can make reports. But then there are also human rights organizations that are there. Jamaica Aid Support for Life, where I work, is one of them. And we have over the years facilitated people making reports to any one of these bodies. So if they have a report to make to INDECOM, but they are not comfortable going there on their own, they come to us. We will take the report and take it there, or we will accompany them there to make the report. The Jamaica Network of Seropositives, I spoke about JADS earlier, which they manage, E4Life, Jamaicans for Justice. These are all non-government organizations to which you can, they all serve different constituents, and you can report. E4Life focuses, for example, on the young girl. So any violation of sexual violence committed against young girls, E4Life is always there to go all the way with them. But I want us to understand that these agencies are there, but also remember all the NGOs, those non-government human rights organizations, are there to help you. If you are having a challenge with going directly to any one of these agencies. Because non-government organizations have a role. They do have a role. Non-government organizations help to identify human rights violations. We collect data about incidents. We analyze and publish that data to build public awareness, to lobby government, and to seek redress for the persons who have been violated. The reality is any society that does not provide protection for the most vulnerable in the society would be a society that has failed. The church has survived through centuries, and the church has always been and will always be here. And as such, it is an important institution that has a role to play in ensuring that the rights of all citizens are respected. I go back to the passage I started with at the beginning. So somebody may be asking in the room, reporting all these incidents of HIV discrimination and gender-based violence and crimes and all of this, what does this have to do with my Christian journey? What does this have to do with me? Why shouldn't I just be focusing on serving my God and making it through the pearly gates? What does this have to do with me? Maybe the question you are asking. But I go back to Paul's letter to the Corinthians, and he says, come, read with me. Love is patient. Go on. Hold on, stop right there. It does not do what? And it is not what? Right, and that is why we cannot just say, I am on my way to glory and I don't business with anybody else. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrong. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoiceth with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always preserves. So, the next time you ask yourself the question, what does all of this HIV/AIDS issue, discrimination, gender-based violence have to do with me? Why do I have to report any of this? if I'm aware that it is happening. The reality is, as a part of your Christian journey, it is the right thing to do. It is the right thing to do. And you know, people have always had confidence in the church over the years, and things they'll say to nobody else. They'll come and tell pastor. They'll come and tell bishop. When that information comes to you, how do you help that person to get beyond the challenge that they are having? And this is what reporting is to the agencies that have the resources to help, is one of the ways in which you can help to do that. As we celebrate World AIDS Day, I hope that you will be challenged. We celebrate World AIDS Day at the beginning of the last month of the year. And as we look towards the new year, I hope you are challenged to ask yourself, how can I help? How can I help in dealing with, in reducing the challenges that people living with HIV face? Because there's nothing in Scripture that tells us that those living with HIV will be excluded from the kingdom. So let us all play our part in ensuring that the rights of all citizens are protected and that the equality with which each person should be treated is extended to them. Thank you very much. Genesis 4, verse 9. I am not my brother's keeper. You know, I looked at that passage as the passage to start with, but then Corinthians took hold. But be your brother's keeper. Thank you for that, Bishop. Thank you very much. Take care.
Friends, brothers and sisters, colleagues, persons viewing virtually, we have gotten a lot to think about, and what the presentations were all about was giving you a foretaste of what the next tranche of activities under the Jamaica Council of Churches project will be zeroing in on. So this is just a foretaste of the work to come, where we'll be going in details with some of these issues of social protection, the issues of reporting among the various denominations under the JCC umbrella and the other faith groups which are our partners. We have a video that is just coming into us from Albert Town High, and you will be seeing and sharing in that in just a minute. But I just want to say to us all that we are happy for having had you with us on this journey over the last 3 years. The project has been in operation, as just mentioned, for over 3 years, and we are on the final lap of that. We end in December, the last day, and it has been truly a journey for us. During this period, we have encountered, I don't know if it's an enemy or a friend, COVID-19. It has caused it to be what we consider the worst of times and the best of times. But our partners and our denominations have risen to the challenge, and we are on the road to recovery in all manner of facets that you can think of, both in terms of health, both in terms of how we access different opportunities that the pandemic has offered to us. And so even as we're pulling down the curtains on this scene of the project, I know that you will stand with us as we embark on the new leg of the next scene. So I want you to put your hands together for yourselves and for the work that we are still to do in the next 3 years. Go JCC and partners. So, brothers and sisters, this is not the last of it all. Definitely, we have seen gains in terms of how our society has moved on that continuum towards non-discrimination. We have successes, and we need to embrace those successes. But we also know that it's a long road ahead because behavior takes a long time to change. And so, despite having been on that journey, there's still further to go. There are many of us still who are still at the start, and we can't too bash people from where they are. But we are committed to holding hands with the Jamaican society to take them to that place where non-discrimination is their own realities. So, brothers and sisters, while we are, as I just mentioned, pulling down that curtain, I want us to take a little time and look at what our young people, it's one of our partners in Trelawney, the young people that have their own stance against what they're doing for World AIDS Day. And so I'm going to just give you a time to just reflect while the video is going to be uploaded. And so, without further delay, we're going to be showing that video from the Albertown High School.
Today, World AIDS Day, the Red Cross Youth Link, in collaboration with the Guidance Department of Troy High School, wish to lend support to persons living with HIV/AIDS. End AIDS. End pandemics. End inequalities.
Good morning. So today we're celebrating World AIDS Day, where the theme for this year's AIDS Day suggests that ending inequality will end AIDS. Right? So today here at the Troy High School, we have a display board aimed at educating students on certain myths that go around about AIDS and HIV. And we seek to ensure that students are firmly educated.
Welcome to the Troy High School. We want to welcome you to our impact activity this morning as we celebrate World AIDS Day. This morning we take the time out to stand in support of persons living with HIV/AIDS. We are hoping to send a message of hope and cheer to these individuals. We are promoting the fact that they are people living lives and they deserve to be loved and cared for. We stand this morning with them as we end AIDS, we end inequalities, and we end the pandemic. Let's honk in support of persons living with HIV/AIDS. This morning we have, representing the Troy High School family, our students, and they share with us messages of hope and cheer to the entire world as we celebrate World AIDS Day at Troy High School.
Sisters and brothers, we have come to the end of our time together. And what a joy it has been sharing this time with you. I should have done this at the beginning. Let me just do it now to also acknowledge the work of our, I'm going to say our General Secretary, the General Secretary of the Jamaica Council of Churches, Reverend Newton Dixon, who also has done and continues to do sterling work for the organization and for this project. And before I forget, lunch is available. If it's not available, even as I speak, it will be available in a moment. So please, it will be in boxes, so don't leave your lunch. Make sure you collect it on your way. Let me just conclude then by thanking everyone, the staff here at the Terra Nova Hotel for the hospitality and for hosting us. Yes, give them a Round of applause. And thank you for thanking me in such a sterling fashion earlier, because I was not going to thank myself, so thank you so much for that. And Archbishop, thank you so much for staying with us, staying the course. I know you're very busy, and this is a sacrifice for you, so thank you so much. Please give the Archbishop a round of applause. We do value the time that you've spent with us. To Juliet and the team, Melissa and the team, Ms. Stingling, for organizing today. This is logistical nightmare. Put your hands together for them. We cannot imagine the work that you have put in, but I know it's quite a bit. Thanks to the site facilitators for the support, as well as our social media officer as well. For the Troy High School, for the tremendous work that they did in putting that video together, and I'm sure France had something to do with it. So thanks to the staff and students at the Troy High School, and it's a lovely partner to have on board, especially on this World AIDS Day. To Mr. Gabriel Devon for taking the time. I know this is near and dear to your heart, so thank you so much for making the time to come to be with us and to share very insightful information with us. And I look forward to the next 3-year cycle, because if perchance we can build out on the presentation you have made, and I'd love to see that study, then I know this will transform the religious landscape in Jamaica for good, and therefore transform the lives of Jamaican people in particular. So looking forward to engaging the findings from that study. And to Patrick, who had to leave, very sterling advocate for the most vulnerable in the country, and speaking up on the level of policy and advocacy. He has been to Parliament and in other spheres. On Sunday evening, we were together in a virtual space making presentations as well. So thanks to Patrick. Put your hands together for him, for his sterling work. Thanks to all of you, the audience, virtually, as well as those of you face-to-face, for staying the course and for remaining faithful. Please share the word, the work of the Jamaica Council of Churches. We are on the verge of celebrating 100 years, and we're just about beginning to make plans for our 100th anniversary celebration next year. And so all the new programs and activities that we'll be rolling out next year, of course, are in line with our anniversary celebration. So everything working together for good, as Scripture says. So all in all, thank you again very much for your support, your help, your contribution. Please continue to pray for us at the Jamaica Council of Churches, the work of the National Family Planning Board, the Ministry of Health and Wellness, and the support we receive from Global Fund and other partners. So thanks again very much, and let's bow our heads as we give God thanks for the meal that we are about to share. Let us pray. All things come from you, O Lord, and of your own do we give you. Blessed be God forever. We give you thanks, gracious God, for bringing us to the end of this session. We thank you for all that we have learned and discussed, and we are now committing to share. Pray that you'll bless us as we leave here. Bless the food of which we're about to partake. Bless it to our use and us to your service. Keep us ever mindful and responsive to those who have no food. This we ask in the name of Jesus Christ the Lord. Amen. God bless you all, and have a good week. All the best for the upcoming season of Christmas. God bless you.